Hello. How's it going, everybody? Nice to see you. Welcome to Gatherings Live. Today I'm in Arizona and we are enjoying a wonderful monsoon storm outside. So if you hear any background noise, it's probably the thunder and lightning. And I'm ready to, have this be over so that I can go dance in the rain, because that is a thing that I do regularly. Hey friends, welcome to Gatherings Live. I'm Claire. I'm so glad that you could make it here with us today. Gatherings Live is a monthly conversation that's focused around the Gatherings study guide content that can be found on the Lift and Love website, liftandlove.org. If you click on Gather and then you click on Gatherings, you'll find our content. We have consolidated our websites with Gather together with Lift and Love, so they're all in there in one, so you can find us there. Gatherings are independently organized groups of LGBTQ Latter-day Saints and those who love them that create a safe space for inclusive gospel discussion. We are trying to model how these conversations can be organic and as unique as you are on these Instagram lives. So we have some exciting new statistics, maybe on 59 gatherings on our online database from 21 different states in the US, and we have a gathering group in Australia. That's our first gatherings group outside of the continental US. We're super excited about it. So 59 gatherings in the directory. If you ever watch this, we're saying hi. If you start a gathering of your own somewhere, please let us know. We would love to hear about it. And I would love to introduce our guests tonight. We have Sarah and Jeff Case. Go ahead and say hi.
Hi, friends.
Hey.
Awesome. I'm so glad you could make it here with us tonight. If you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, let's let the world say hello to Sarah and Jeff Case.
I'm Sarah Case. We're parents of three. I am a teacher, and I am straight. I am a hardcore ally.
Yeah, and I'm Jeff Case. I'm a psychologist. We've been married for almost 27 years in a couple of weeks. I am gay, and so some people describe our marriage as mixed orientation, but I think we're oriented both to like men. But we fell in love and are still together after all these years, and we have, like my wife said, we have three kids. Two are queer. And I think we've had some really fun discussions in our family over the years, and hopefully we've kind of created a safe space in our home for many identities and many different journeys.
I love that. And the three of us have got to work together a little bit more closely in the last couple months, which I've loved. But do you guys want to talk about that? The awesome thing that we're preparing for in September?
Yeah, so this Gather for Youth conference, so I guess it's part of the bigger Gather conference that it's the second conference. And for the first time this year, we'll be having a youth track.
Yeah, so last year was the first conference Gather, and this is our second. And so this is new. The Gather for Youth is new this year. And 14-year-olds turning 14 to 18 are going to be off in their own little world with us, that we're going to have their own specific track to do, which honestly it's going to be really fun, because we are going to have lots of activities and games and lots of snacks, lots of things to go in with all of the uplifting content as well.
Yeah, we noticed the gap that people were letting us know that they had kids who wanted to come together, and so that's kind of where it came from, of like, let's create a space for me, it's like the things that I would have wanted when I was a teenager, right? How cool would it have been for teenage Claire to have a conference that I could go to learn about my identity, how it not only is okay, but how it is also inclusive in the gospel that I love so much and grew up with. And so that's kind of the space we're trying to create, and we're on the committee for it, and just so excited that we get to do it, that we get to put it on, and that we get to do it together. It's been so fun. Okay, I got a question for you guys. What's a movie that you and your family quote regularly? So I was thinking about this for mine. My younger brothers and sister and I think we're the ones that mainly quote it. We quote the movie Atlantis. Did you guys ever watch that one growing up?
Yeah.
We love Atlantis, and we quote it too. Star Wars, all Star Wars we quote. And this one is probably a little bit more niche, but A Muppet's Christmas Carol.
We love A Muppet's Christmas. We
Really?
love a lot of the Muppets movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. They're so good.
that's
And
my
that's a really good one.
movie. Everyone laughs at me, and I'm like, no, it's literally my favorite. I lobby my family to make them watch it every Christmas Eve.
Yeah, we honestly watched to death the the Muppets Treasure Island,
Yes.
and we have a lot of those lines memorized as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's actually been
Oh my
that has actually has been one that our family will quote as well and sing songs too.
Yeah, yeah.
But when we first got married, I had seen the movie Clueless probably 20, 30 times.
50.
hmm
And then I mean, since then I've seen it 100 times. But I made Jeff watch it when we were like, before we even got married. And then I made him watch it many, many, many times. And so we quote that one right and left in our house.
Yeah.
I love that. Awesome. Oh my gosh, when you said Muppets Treasure Island, two quotes hit me. My oldest brother Chad loves the part where he goes, "He's got one leg, Jim. Count 'em, one." He just thinks that's so funny. So we'll do that one a lot. And then also those little girls took it, right? Blind Pierre, fancy.
What's the starfish in his pants?
So I like Gonzo's line about having starfish in his pants, and then Rizzo says, "You and your hobbies."
Yes. And then sometimes when we've been in the car a while, my brothers and I will go, "Cabin fever, and I've got it too." And my
Fever,
sister, I
yeah.
can hear my sister right now going, "You leave me out of it." So I said my brothers, and my sister Chloe. We laugh at that a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to talk tonight about the Gatherings curriculum from July. So we are in the Book of Alma, which is the biggest book in the middle of the Book of Mormon. It's the longest. It's the one that a lot of people get lost in. There's a lot of crossing storylines and a lot going on. So kind of our July focus is in this first half of the Book of Alma. And the way that I kind of saw it this month, and we can leap off from this, we can go a different direction, but I saw the first like 32 chapters of Alma being this like curated narrative of highlights of like people who were like living the same storyline that Christ orchestrated. Like, let's tell these stories back to back to back to back. And the way that I summarized it in the July curriculum was, miraculous faith is often found in the most unlikely of people, places, and circumstances. And I feel like those are just really highlighted all throughout the Book of Mormon, but really in the Book of Alma, there's some really interesting examples. And so just your thoughts on that, or just the curriculum you've been looking at, or anything that you've seen in Alma. Let's just jump in.
Well, I think that's a great kind of conversation starter. Like the examples of faith are found in a lot of different places. You know, I remember sitting up on the stand. I play the organ at church. I lead the music. So I'm not sitting on the stand like in any kind of well, I'm not in any kind of leadership role except music leadership, which I do highly value. But you know, I was looking at our ward, and we have a good ward. We have a wonderful people in the ward, and very much, you know, a lot of people that are kind of fit the mold and are kind of the typical LDS families, and we have a good bishopric and kind of a typical LDS bishopric, and they take good care of each other. But as we have walked among the LGBTQ circles within the church through different organizations that we've been a part of over the years, the people on the margins are so fascinating and so wonderful. We have found so many examples of really wonderful faith from our trans brothers and sisters who really have to kind of have endured quite a lot to try to find a space even in church.
And you learn different things from different kinds of people. And so when you're right there in the middle and the quintessential, you know, standard Mormon, Molly Mormon or Peter Priest or whatever, you learn lots of things from them. But the people that are on the margins, you learn different things from. You learn different aspects of spirituality. You learn different ways to look at things because of different life experiences. And so we love hearing people's stories and hearing that their truths to understand more, and then that brings us closer to our Savior, who knows all of us individually, and
Yeah.
in the long run.
Yeah, so the Book of Almond, like you see all these different pockets of people that are ministered to by either by Alma, Amulek, or the Sons of Messiah, and then the broader folks as well, and finding examples of faith like Abish off by herself among the Lamanites, having faith and having experiences that and these really remarkable examples that are not found in the middle of Zarahemla, for example.
Yeah, okay. So I had forgotten about this until I wrote this study guide and was thinking about it. But I was invited to be on a podcast for an institute teacher. He was trying to, it was a couple years ago, he was trying to do something different with his institute class, and he was teaching women in the scriptures. And so he had the brilliant idea to do a podcast episode every week and to have women on the podcast speaking about the women in the scriptures. And so he reached out to me because he had known my dad, and he said, will you speak about Abish in the Book of Mormon? And so I had this conversation with him where I thought I knew the storyline pretty well, but in that conversation, I feel like I learned so much. And one of the things that really stood out to me is I really started to try to think from Abish's perspective of like, what is she doing there among the Lamanites? And how was she treated by her family or other Nephites? I imagine living among your enemy. If you ever ran into Nephites, they probably weren't very excited,
Yeah.
right? Like, what are you doing? You're a traitor living amongst them. And what was her story? Why was she there? Why did she stay? What did she think on a day-to-day basis? And just how amazing it was that she was there, and maybe she got a lot of flack for it, but when God needed her, she was in the exact right place for this miracle. And that's what I see along the margins and in the spaces that I've been, is that the personalities and the people that I meet that have a unique story, or everybody does, right? Something to give, that when they let God move their life, a lot of times we ask the question, why? Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And then we find an answer and we're like, oh, this is cool. Like, God knew that there's something that I could share, or that somebody needed me, or that I needed somebody else. And God is so good at weaving that tapestry together. And so I love just thinking about that, of like, what does that look like in our lives, where the times where I'm frustrated, why am I here? What's going on? And then why don't I turn to God and go, okay, who's here for me? And who am I here for? And how can I be a part of someone else's miracle? Would probably make my days a lot more fulfilling and happier and different things. But I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. Like, so you're kind of the person in the space that needs to be there at that time to kind of be a role, or be with somebody. I remember once upon a time, a 21-year-old Jeff Case found himself in boot camp in South Carolina. So, fun fact, I am an Army veteran, and went to boot camp. And uh, again, I've always been interested with people kind of on the margins, and kind of understanding their stories a bit. So most of the troops were fine. They were just kind of middle of the road. They did great. Or whatever. But there were some that were in this like intense crucible that we were all under. And they either like really rose up to the occasion, or some were really kind of struggling in very significant ways. And those were the people that I was the most interested in. Back then, I was not really thinking about studying psychology. I was a music education major, and that was kind of my direction. But I started like I was curious to kind of be around these people and kind of understand the difference between these two groups, right? And I found some remarkable stories and personalities, and as I got to know them, and especially the ones that were really struggling, and hearing their narratives and where they came from, the journeys they were on. There was a female there who had really large legs, and some of the guys liked to make fun of her. And it tearfully told me one day, she says, I've lost 150 pounds, but for some people, it will never be enough. And again, she was on this incredible journey of health,
Yeah.
and she still had they were strong legs. These are not, but she was like, it's never going to be enough, right? And learning her story, you get to see like, wow, this is not just a person who magically appeared in the middle of their life in boot camp, right? And so I felt very inspired by just kind of being in the place where people were at, having these, unique experiences.
It made me think of, I spent some time today in the supplementary material that we added on to be able to see of the story of faith that we added. So it's on in Charlie's book, Expanding the Borders of Zion. And chapter 4 was the one that we picked for this month about seeing deeply. And I just really love those two words together. I love this concept of seeing people deeply. And then the stories that he tells two stories of people that initially he didn't like, they weren't big personalities. They weren't people that he needed to build a relationship with. It was honestly like two people he could have just never seen again. And on an invitation from his stake president to see people deeply, he reached out and just shares the things that he learned about who they were, the journey that they were on, and how they impacted each other. And I think that's so beautiful. I think that's a huge part of why we're here. Yeah. We're here to be able to learn how to share our story, which is difficult, but also to be curious about the stories of others and to find space, because you meet someone else's story and go, man, that doesn't fit my narrative, but how can I stretch so that your life can also be something that I can be a witness to and that there's space for.
Yeah.
I'm a middle school teacher. And it's something that opens my eyes every single semester. Every group of kids in my room that comes in, I get to, like Jeff said, they're not these kids that are just right here. And it's really easy to be like, well, why didn't you turn that paper in, or why didn't you do the thing? Because we make all these assumptions about people and just being in the middle of their lives and not knowing everything that's going on. I had a student that didn't probably come to half of the classes for the semester, and she had to stay home to babysit. And those are just things that don't always occur to us. These different backgrounds, different things that people do have to deal with, aren't always the first things on our mind.
Yeah.
There's a quote at the beginning of this chapter that Charlie writes, and he's quoting. It's from a BYU forum address from renowned columnist David Brooks. But the line that I really saw today was, he's just talking about our world right now. We do not tend to see the heart and soul of each person, only a bunch of bad labels. And I just thought, ooh, that's so easy to do in a world where we have gotten really good at labels, right? And this is how I can tell this story and you fit in that and different things. And how do we see past bad labels? How do we see through that to get to the heart of people where we can find common ground and that vulnerable space where we can learn and grow and love?
It's actually my favorite part about being a teacher is that, like, once I had a kid transferred into my class because he was a discipline problem. And he had to leave the class that he was in and come into my class. And by just talking to him and getting to know him and learning more about him, I didn't have any discipline problems with him in my class. And it was literally, I put him up right next to me because, as you do. So I put him up right next to me and I would just shoot him little comments all the time. Like somebody would say something, I'd be like, oh, I can't believe they said that out loud, just to him. And he, like, that connection, and then he would start opening up to me. And that connection between the two of us, understanding him better and him understanding me better, absolutely changed and opened our world.
Yeah. One of the areas that so I currently my practice is with military veterans. I'm in a clinic that's run by veterans for veterans, and one of the common themes that come up in our space is road rage. This may veterans have a hard time driving. They experience a lot of anger and frustration with other drivers, and I hear about it all the time because they have to drive to come see me. And one thing that I kind of notice as the mood sort of takes over their experience is that they're making kind of these very quick judgments about what happened. Like, that guy's such a jerk, right? Or drivers here are the worst, or they say all sort of things, but really what they're doing is they're making up a story, right? This guy's a jerk. You don't know that he's a jerk. All you know is that he cut you off, or he sped around you, or all you saw was the behavior, but you have no idea what was motivating the behavior. So if you're going to tell a story, make up a good story. Saying he's a jerk is boring. That's a boring story that everyone tells all the time. Make up a good story. He just had 4 cups of coffee and he hit the freeway in traffic and he's got to find a bathroom like now. Right?
You're doing a great job of telling this story with like euphemisms for what we actually say when we're mad at drivers. I'm very impressed.
Yes, thank you. Or yeah, I might yeah, a little different language with vets. But make up a story like
Yeah.
his wife just called and his son was just awarded top spelling bee person, and there's an award ceremony at the school, and get down here now and
Yeah.
make up a great story. But the story that you make up is going to drive kind of how you feel about the person and feel about the situation.
Yes. Okay. So I a couple of years ago noticed that I myself had a lot of road rage. And in driving to and from teaching seminary, that's like real bad vibes, right? When you're trying to like think about gospel things and Christ and you're like, wow, so mad. And I had this idea, and it might have been from someone else, but for some reason I decided to put it into action, and I catch myself doing it. I built the habit. Instead of saying, like you said, like that person's a jerk that cut me off, instead I'll say, it wasn't very nice to cut me off, but like not label them as a person. Like the thing that you did, I didn't like, but I'm not going to insult you, your intelligence, your mother, your dog, whatever it is that's coming out of my mouth,
Yeah.
right? But just like, I don't like that you cut me off, or that was not a smart choice. Like, those things. And that kind of helps separate it a little bit for me of telling the
Yeah.
story about their actions and not who they are. But my mom, who is a sweet angel and probably has never had road rage, she taught me something that I really didn't like when I was a teenager, but she would always ask me, like, well, why do you think they did that? And she would come up with 1 or 2 reasons why someone would do something that I thought was stupid or was harmful or
Yeah.
whatever. And so I, try to do that same thing of like, oh man, maybe that guy cut me off because his wife's going into labor, and if I knew the situation, I would absolutely let you in. And how
Yeah.
interesting is it that my behavior and attitude changes once I know your story and your reason? Leads me to Brene Brown, right? Proximity is everything. It is so hard to hate people up close. So move in, right? Get closer, get to know them and their stories and what the real story is instead of the one that, we make up because it's easy.
Claire, our moms must have been in cahoots. So when I was younger, I was bullied pretty badly, beat up quite a lot, harassed verbally, and I came home from school one day and I was upset and I was telling my mom all the things that these kids said and how I hated them and it was how awful it was. And she said, "Wow, those are really grown up words that those kids are using. I wonder if they hear them at home." And isn't it nice that you live in a house where people don't use words like that? I'm like, thanks, mom. Now I feel empathy for my bullies. Like, darn
Yeah,
you.
no.
But but I think you're right. Like if we can develop empathy and understanding for people, I think this is part of Charlie's chapter on being seen, right? That we need to see others on a deeper level than just what's on the surface, like just the behavior in traffic, and see them more deeply, and then the benefit of us when we get seen on a deeper level as well. How important that is.
And before we move on, I know that you're gonna want to brush us aside, but I am sorry that you went through that growing up, the bullying, the name calling, getting beat up. I share some of that story, right? And so I know what that feels like, and I'm sorry that is a part of your story. Um, and my mom, bless her heart, would do the same thing about like, well, do you think they were having a bad day? And I'm like, no, mom, go call their moms and like take care of it. And my mom was like, hey, you're strong enough to handle whatever the situation was. I mean, if I was ever in danger, my mom would be the first to protect me, right? But a lot of times it was things that, I could move away and I needed to learn to let go. But she was also very good at going, okay, can you think about why they would be doing that? And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's ever a lesson that I'll learn easily, but at least one that keeps coming back, right? Comes
Yeah.
back around.
Well, and then this speaks to like what happens next. So it was safest for me to not be seen, right? And so I did not want to be seen. And being a gay kid at church, I didn't want to be seen, right? When I was at scout camp or with the young men, I didn't want to be seen for who I knew I was. In Yeah, I grew up around the world. My dad was in the military, and so very conservative on very conservative military bases and a very conservative religion, obviously, and it was dangerous to be seen. And so,
That's one of the things that Charlie Bird talks about in that chapter, is that being truly seen was one of his greatest fears as a
Yeah.
child.
yeah,
And I hate that any child feels that way, that if they actually knew who I was and who I am and what I feel, that they, that is my greatest fear. And so I think that's, speaks to that is, it's something that exists out there that we need to be so aware of, and help as much as we can
yeah,
to get rid of that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Sarah, I've got a question for you. What I know that you and Jeff have known each other a long time. What did you see when you first met Jeff, and what do you continually see that has led to this marriage and this beautiful relationship that you have with someone who is scared of being seen or has been scared of being seen? What were you seeing?
Um, so I've actually always said, so we've been married for 27 years. Jeff told me that he was gay 6 months into our marriage. So I didn't know before we got married. And um, I've always said that he's a very caring, very sensitive, understanding person. And I think all of that is tied in to who he is. It's tied into, like, if he weren't gay, would he be as sensitive to me? Do you know what I mean? If like, to people in general, because he's a psychologist and he needs to be sensitive and aware of the people around him. And so these things that I so value in him are all a part of him. And so it's really important to me that this is a part of him too, because it all feeds into who he is and who he is in the long run, and all together as a whole person. And so those are the things that I loved about him, and that I wouldn't get rid of any aspect of him for fear of losing the aspects that are really important to me. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Was that your question?
no, I love it. And I've got a follow up for Jeff of what is it meant to you that Sarah sees you?
It gave me a lot of anxiety at
I'm
first.
like,
Yeah.
you don't even know how many times in our marriage he said to me, "You don't know me." I'd be like, I do,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. It used to really bother me that she was like, I saw your eye twitch, you're feeling dot dot dot. And I'm like, how dare you know my face? Right? Because I had to be so guarded, and I felt like I had to have this mask to avoid getting my butt kicked, right? And I had to like have this protective shell that Sarah has been able to see through. We were actually really close friends for a couple years before we dated and got married or whatever. But it has meant the world that she is the one human who knows me the most and knows me the best and loves me the most.
Yeah.
And that has helped heal a lot of those wounds that I had as a kid and as a young adult, for that matter, and even some of the wounds that I still carry with me.
Yeah. I think that it's a Christ-like quality to see people who they really are and to love them. And I think that as we ask for that spiritual gift, I think that God is so willing to give it, right? And then can we use it to see people? And I have found that so many people, what they need is a lot. It's more simple than I think it is. So many people just need someone that can look them in the eye, sit with them and whatever they're going through and say, I see you and I love you.
Yeah,
Period. Nothing else. And it does so much. I like that you use the word healing, right? It's so healing when someone can sit with us where we're at and go, I see you. I'm not scared. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And I don't love you any less. And in fact, I probably love you more knowing that I got to be in your heart, sharing in that vulnerability. And I think that's what Christ does or will do for all of us and allows us to do for each other. I think it's just a beautiful part of the atonement that we get to step into just a tiny piece of
yeah,
and go, wow, this is what it's like to be the savior, times infinity.
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. Ooh. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thanks for letting me put you guys on the spot. I was like,
Yeah.
can I do this? I know I'm like, the host, but can I ask a pointed question like that? And I just felt like it was important to see, because what I know of you, I know that you both have worked on seeing and being seen. And I think that really came through. So thank you for sharing,
Yeah.
that. What else have you guys seen in the curriculum or the content, or just what's on your mind and heart that you guys want to talk about tonight?
Well, one of the things that I've been kind of chewing on for a lot of years, and it comes up with some of this content, though, it kind of is still in that same idea, is the stories we tell about ourselves that keep us hidden, that keep us from being seen, right? That if people were to know us, they would run for the hills, they would, be abusive, or worse, ignore us entirely, right? Um, and um, and this was being seen and seeing. I think this was also kind of from Charlie's chapter. It also, he quotes in the book of John about seeing Christ as he is. That's also a similar passage to what's found in the book of Mormon and Moroni. That our hope is that when Christ shall appear, we shall be like him, and well, we shall see him as he is, and we shall be like him. Right? We're not going to see him as he's been interpreted by any leader, no matter how spiritual they are, right? We're going to see him as he is, not as we assume he will be to us. I've always assumed that Christ will be very condemning of me, and that's been always my fear, right? But if God is love, then I want to see pure love in this person, and then be like him. Also have kind of a perfected love. Um, and one of my friends had said this a long time ago, that our heavenly mother loves women far more than a gay woman could love another woman, and our heavenly father loves men far more than a gay man could love another man. And they have a perfected love for us, and and I think this is kind of the whole point of empathy and really seeing people, is to develop a purer love, and then that will motivate a whole different set of behaviors and actions.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how would I define pure love, right?
Mm.
Like, what does that look like? It's unconditional.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of I read my mind is blanking. Steve Young has written 3 books now that are all based on this. He calls it the law of love. And
Yeah.
we used it and he talked about it Gather last year. We've used it in the Gatherings curriculum, but his phrase of non-transactional love has really impacted me, of really asking myself the questions of, why do I love this person? What am I expecting to get out of it? And what if it's nothing? Does that change the way that I'm behaving? Does it change the way that I feel? And if it does, I don't like that. I don't want things to be transactional, because I don't believe that that's what God does for us. I think we have sometimes painted God into that corner, that, the only thing we can see is, if you keep the commandments, you shall be blessed. And I think that's a true statement. And I don't think it's the whole story. I think that there are lots of blessings to receive. And I think that there are commandments that are kept in different ways. And I think that we have examples in scripture of people who break commandments and are blessed. And, there are 2 commandments and they have to choose, and just different things like that. But I love that non-transactional love. Am I trying
Yeah.
to emulate that? And can I receive it? That's the tricky question for me, is, can I receive it from someone else when there's nothing that I can do to earn it? And can I trust and just sit in it? Because I self-sabotage and try to ruin, right? Like, oh, if I do this, then you're going to stop. And that probably makes the people closest to me roll their eyes quite a bit. But
Well, and if you stop and you look at it, like, how do I want to be loved? I don't want people to love me transactionally. I don't want people to love me um, with all of these exceptions around it. I don't want people to stop loving me because I made a mistake. I don't want people to not love me because of one aspect of my life they don't agree with. Like, if I am going to love other people, I need to love them how I want to be loved as
yeah,
well. And so turning that around and realizing that, I don't want that harsh version of love. I can give a more, open love, and which is so much more to what our Savior and our Heavenly Father has for us.
Yeah.
and once I started to try to accept in that, to accept that sort of love from my heavenly parents in Christ, when I started to first try to believe it, right, and accept it, I felt it completely break open my heart, and I just felt more connected to people. I have felt more understanding. I have more patience, and I have a lot more growing empathy for people. But it started with me realizing that, like, trying to make myself believe my heavenly parents love me because I'm their kid, and
Yeah.
that's it. And that's a hard one, right? I have to like remind myself of that often, or they're not going to stop loving me because I made a choice.
Yeah.
They're not going to stop loving me if I make a different choice tomorrow. And that's a hard thing. But the second I started trying to believe it, I think it broke my heart open, allowed me to give and extend that love more than I felt like maybe I didn't have as deep of a well in the past.
Yeah.
Or it was harder. It took more from me, and it wasn't taking. It was just adding to. It's just something I've noticed.
Yeah. I think one of the experiences that I've had with again, being a dad, I can't imagine like God's love for us, but just being a dad has given me kind of some insight into that. That when my kids have made dumb little mistakes, it's easy to kind of be snippy and like, dude, that was stupid, or and just like kind of be grumpy with them about that. But when the mistakes have been bigger as they've gotten older and the consequences heavier for the mistakes that they've made, when they do make mistakes, I don't find myself in a place of anger or grumpiness. I find myself in a place where I want to just wrap them up in a big hug and tell them it's okay, still love you, right? And I was in the act of doing that once with my son, and the Holy Ghost whispered to me, "Yeah, it's kind of like that." Um,
That's sweet.
and I think that's how God is with us as well as we make our mistakes. There isn't anger, but love, right? Um,
Ooh.
and I'm not sure, if this is. I think this is part of. Well, it's in Alma. I think it's in the chapters that you had put out. The story of the second and third order effects of love, right? Ammon um, had love for the Lamanites, or he wouldn't have been able to go serve them, um, and I think he saw these people in a different way through God's eyes, perhaps, and loved enough to want to help them. And in fact, that's kind of how pre-mission they describe why they want to go to the Lamanites. It's out of the sense of love. These are our brothers, or at the very most, these are our cousins, right? This is all one family,
Yeah.
right? So they wanted to go kind of bring them back in for love, and that was kind of the first order effect of love. And the second order effect was Lamoni and his household and how they kind of converted. And then the third order effect were the next set of Lamanites, the anti-Nephi Lehis, who they didn't want to even take up arms anymore, even in their own self-defense. Ammon was he would cut a guy who crossed his path if he needed to,
Mhm.
right? But the second and third order effects of the Lamanites were like, we don't want anything to do with these weapons of war. We cannot cause any more death, any more destruction, and that it just seems to kind of grow bigger and bigger as love is kind of
Yeah.
offered.
I love that idea of like the ripple effects, right? Of the people that I, in my spheres, I'm trying to love differently than maybe I was taught, or maybe I just picked up in the world, right? And building that of like, what are the ripples that I can't see yet, but hopefully, that I can trust that are growing.
Uh-huh.
And as people have learned that, and the ripples that they have extended out that have influenced my life and taught me, is just a beautiful concept of how interconnected we are as God's family.
Yeah, yep. And so when I hear church leaders say a dumb thing about queer people, locally or bigger, like my heart is a little bit sad. Sometimes I can get grumpy, but then I just think, all right, we have more work to do. We're not done ministering yet. We have more work to do, and kind of get resolute back in that space of love. They're not there yet, and that's okay. I can be patient, and we'll keep having conversations where, um, again, where we can be seen, where we can see them, and then it just that it expands outward from there.
Yeah. I just thought of, because I've had some experiences like where I've been really frustrated with church leaders, local and general, and just comments that have been made, or talks that have been given. And I just thought, what if I asked myself, what are they not seeing yet?
Yeah,
Like, what are they not seeing? Because maybe it hasn't reached their circle of influence yet. And so maybe my question or my prayer can be, God, is there a way that I can reach that? And if there's not, can you do that thing that you do where you send people into other people's circle of influence, right? Send those ripples and just trust that they're coming, that hopefully I'll see a lot of those ripples in my lifetime. But I think just trusting that God can handle my anger, he can handle my grumpiness, he can handle all of that. And if I can trust him with it, then I get the exchange, right? Where he will then go, okay, I took that. Thank you. Now here's some hope. Here's some, there's things to come. There's good, there's faith, there's hope here. And so I think that's a beautiful, hope-filled way of seeing the world and to seeing the gospel and of seeing each other and ourselves.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last thoughts, comments? Just getting close to the wrapping up. Is there anything that you want to talk about we haven't said yet? Ideas that have popped in?
No, again, I think it's, don't be afraid to sit with people on the margins. You'll hear some extraordinary stories, and you're going to find the Abishes out there if you're willing to kind of go out there and get out of the place of comfort, um, and and have conversations with people that you wouldn't normally feel, that you wouldn't normally be drawn to talking with, and hearing their stories, and a little bit of empathy goes a long way. I think it was. Elder Maxwell, I think he said, empathy is never wasted.
Mm.
And I love that.
And the joy that comes from learning about other people and understanding other people truly, and having that empathy for other people, serves you really well. It is a blessing. It is a joy. It is a happiness that is for you by learning and helping and understanding other people better.
Yeah. I think that's something that I can do better of just verbalizing. Is I wish that people in my life, family, friends, people at church, people I see at work, whatever it is, but I just wish people would ask me the questions that they're thinking, because I hope that I would be able to take a breath and respond well. But then we can have a better conversation. I think it hurts me a little bit more when I hear of, so and so asked me, and then that person gets back, and I'm like, I was right there. You also could have asked me. And I guess the question is, what can I do to create that space where people think that they can ask those questions? And maybe I need to start by asking them a question that would kind of start that exchange. But I just believe that there's a lot of space right now in our world, in our cultural climate and our religious climate and all of it, for just us to pause and to see people deeply, to ask questions instead of telling stories. I like what you said that, Jeff, right? Like, what's the story I'm telling here? But asking what the situation is and where they're coming from, and being able to go, okay, that's different than mine, and I don't have to adopt yours, but I can at least value it and go, okay, thank you. Now I have something to base it off of that isn't the sound chamber of my own head or my own assumptions.
Yep.
Love it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's always, this was really just me wanting to talk to you guys and hang out. So
Claire, anytime.
I wish we lived a little bit closer and I could come over and hang out, because you guys are just awesome. Love all that you do. And thank you for sharing your time with us tonight. And we'll get this up on the YouTube channel and on the Instagram and everything, so everyone can hear the wonderful things you've shared tonight. So awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely our pleasure. That was too fast. I did the wrong thing.
You're okay. If you can find that, just ending the live on your end side. I'm going to do our little outro here. So thanks everyone who's hung around to this part of it. Thank you for listening to this conversation. I hope it got some thoughts started for you and some questions. I just want to reiterate what the cases said about finding people in your world that maybe you don't know their story, maybe you haven't asked, but finding a way to just step in a little bit closer to their space to get to know who they are. And I'm trying to be honest with this here. I can't think of a time when I've ever been sad or thought it was a waste of time to get to know somebody a little bit better, and to get rid of the assumptions that I had made about them, to just hear where they're at from themselves. So I hope that you can find some value in that. I did want to end with just a plug for those of you who are here for our Gather conference in September. We just had a Gather conference meeting in the planning, and it is 7 weeks away, and that is just insane to me. I can't believe it's so close. But the Gather conference is going to be in Utah, September 13th and 14th, with an optional meet and greet hangout the night before to get to know the people who are going to be presenting and who put on Gather. So if you're interested in that, you can, it's at the, I don't know if I said this, the Utah Valley Convention Center. You can register on liftandlove.org. You can follow any of the links that are on the Lift and Love Instagram or this @GatherConf page. We have a discounted ticket for students. So if you're a student, please sign up. If you have a youth, or if you are a youth yourself, 14 to 18, and you want to be in the inaugural year of GFY, Gather for Youth, then this is it. Now's the time to sign up. We have awesome counselors who are ready to just love the heck out of you. And we have so many things set up for you. And we also have something really cool that if Gather doesn't fit into your schedule this year, if you can't come, you're too far away or just too busy, and you would like to, we have the opportunity where you can register and pay or donate to sponsor someone else's ticket. So if you would love to come, but you couldn't, and you would like to still donate that time, you can donate the amount of a ticket so that someone else could come for free, which for them for free, not for you free, right? That'd be amazing. Or if you want to donate at all, we put that money towards putting on the conference and for Gather for Youth. So that's an option there. And we are working on when and how to get talks and different things out digitally afterwards. And so there's a lot of options to be a part of all of it or a little bit of it, or whatever you want. We'll find a way to get you involved in that. So just wanted to make sure that you are aware of those things, and I will be there. I would love to meet you. Can't wait to see what September brings. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. And just, it's weird, but I just want to say, have a good evening. I love you. And I hope that you know that you are loved, that you're needed, that you're wanted in this world, and that you really believe that yourself. So bye, everybody.